Hi guys, welcome to Geek Coding Academy. So today we'll see basic syntax and fundamentals of Java. In our previous video, we saw like how to set up a JDK and how to install IntelliJ, and we have ran our allowed program. So if you guys not watched our previous video, please go and watch. So in this video, we'll see the fundamentals and basic syntax of Java. Let's do it. So first, before learning Java programming, we need to understand the basic syntax and fundamentals for Java. So in this chapter, we're going to teach we're going to see what is variables and data types and what are operators and what is a control flow statements. Okay. So in this video, we'll see variables and data types. So variables in Java, like variables is just like a placeholder where we store the data. Okay. Suppose you consider a integer 5, we need to store it in somewhere, right? Like programming language is used to manipulate the data, manipulate and use the data how we want. So in order to manipulate or use the data, we need to store the data first. So to store a data, we need some placeholder. So in Java, like the storing data through a variable, through a one placeholder called a variable. So variable is nothing but like it is used to store data. Okay, that will be used throughout the program for manipulation or what we need. And these variables has to be defined clearly because Java is strongly typed programming language. Unlike other programming language, where suppose you take example of Python, where you define a variable where you can store file also and you can also store a character also. But in Java, if you define an integer variable, only integer type of data it can hold. So Java is highly strongly typed programming language. Strongly typed means like during the declaration of a variable, we have to define what kind of data it will be stored. Okay. So let's see what you mean by declaring a variable and initializing a variable. So before that, first we need to understand the rules of a defining a variable. There are certain rules in Java. So what are other we'll see. So while giving a variable name, it should only consist of English alphabets, both uppercase and lowercase, and it should consist of digits from 0 to 9 and underscore and dollar symbol. That's the only special character. These two special characters are allowed while defining a name of a variable. And also the variable name should not start with the numbers. Okay. Blank spaces we can't use it as a variable. Like in variable name should not consist of any blank spaces. And r- the most important is these reserve words we cannot use as a variables. Which are all reserve words? You can see on right hand side, I have listed some of the reserve words which are used in Java. Like reserve words are simple, like they have certain words which Java identifies as some functions. So means like the words which have functionality associated with it. Suppose if you write if, Java will consider as a if condition rather than treating it as a variable. So as a developer, we need to follow these rules before defining any variable. Okay. So we saw the rules of defining a variables. Let's see how to declare and initialize a variable. So okay. See, this is like to declare a variable. First, we need to give a variable name on first we need to give a type of variable means type of data we need to put into that variable and also variable name. As you can see here, we can give int age. This is how we can declare. Means the age is a variable where I am going to store a integer type of data to it. Okay. This is what we call declaration, where a initialization is nothing but once we declare at the time of declare we can able to put a data to it if needed. Otherwise we can in the program we can able to assign later in the code. Okay. So there is two type declaration, variable declaration. One is like method level and another is a class level. So method level, if you want to declare a variable, you have to initialize it. But class level, you can just declare, and if you don't initialize it, Java will automatically initialize those variables with the default values. So every data type has its own default values. Like we'll go one by one. What are the data types available for a variables and what is the default value for that? So we'll see. So there are two types of variables we can declare in Java. So one is primitive data types. Like using primitive data types, we can declare variable, or using reference data types. Like these primitive data types are nothing but like in Java support some of the data types which is already been developed, already been added in the Java language itself. Means like for example, integer. To store a int value, we can use int. Int is a data type which is already given in the program language. But these reference data types means like in reference data types, strings, arrays, those are all been defined, but user can also define their own data types. Like how they will define using classes, that we'll discuss once we get into object-oriented concepts. So first we'll see primitive data types. So these are all the 8 primitive data types we have in Java, out of which like what I'll tell you, like byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, and boolean. So out of which the first four, byte, short, int, long, which is used to store a integral data types, means integral type of data. That means like without decimals. Like for float and double will be used for storing decimal data, and for character is for storing a character, and boolean will store only true or false. So let's see one by one what are that. Like byte, as name suggests, it's a 1 byte, it's a 8-bit signed integer. Its range is -128 to +127. That means when you write a program like byte small number, Java will internally assign a value to that, some some value, some amount of memory will be assigned to byte, that is range is -128 to 127. So it means 1 byte of memory will be assigned. So you can store only 1 byte of data to byte variable. Its default value is 0. Similarly for short is a 2 byte, that is 16-bit. So 1 byte is a 8-bit and 2 byte is 16-bit. You can store up to this range, what I show in the screen, that -32,768 to 32,767. For example, short of temperature equal to 25,000. It can hold up to this. If you pass 25,000 to byte, it can't hold because the byte maximum sign value will be 127, right? So if if you want to store a larger data, you need to pick a larger data types. So based on data types, Java will assign memory in RAM space. Its default value is also 0. And int, this is widely and mostly used data types, and by default, if any integral value, Java will treat it as a int unless until we need to specify the other data types. So means like if you suppose like 15,000, if you give to a program, it will think it's a int only. So it is a 32-bit signed integer. That means it's a 4 byte, and range is 2 power of -2 power of 31 to +2 power of 31 minus 1. The example is int of number equal to 15, 1,50,000. Its default value is also 0. Long, if certain values, for example, some large data which can't be inserted into any int data type, we can go with the long. Long means large integer. It is a 64-bit, that means 8-byte data. Its range is -2 power of 63 to +2 power of 63 minus 1. So example, you can store a large data, but while storing the data to long, we need to specify explicitly L symbol after the data. That then only the Java will treat it as a long. Otherwise, it will treat always as int by default. So these are all integral data types. Let's come to the floating point data types. Floating point data types means like decimal numbers. We have two, float and double. So float is a 32-bit floating point number. So when we need a like 2-point precision, we can go with the float. Its range is -1.4 e power of 45 to 3.4 e power of 38, and the default value is 0.0 f. And double is a 64-bit floating point number. This is a default for decimals. Like Java will treat double if we encounter any decimals, like unless until we need to put it in a float, we need to specify f inside it after data. So this is a decimal. So any decimal Java will treat as a double. Double means double precision. We'll get up to precision up to 7 to 8 points. After the point 7 to 8 digits. So the default value is 0.0D. Let's come for any character. So char data type or char variable which converts a character. So it is in Java it's a 2 byte, that is 16 bit. In other programming languages like C, C++, which is only 1 byte, you may wonder why in Java it's 2 byte, because Java uses Unicode character, whereas the other programming languages use ASCII. But Java, which include ASCII character along with that all symbols available in the world. So in Java language, it supports all local languages and all symbols. So for that, to store those amount of values, we need a 2 byte of data. Its range is 0 to 65535. For example, char of letter equal to a, and its default value is a null character. That can be represented by this /u0000. Okay. So Boolean, like Boolean represent only one bit of information. It can hold two possible values, either true or false. By default value is false always. So let's come to the this is all about primitive data types. Let's come to the reference data types. In the reference data types, which take the why it called a reference data type means these data types will take a reference based on classes. Okay, how the classes is defined, like what is class objects, we'll talk deeply on coming classes. But let's think about classes is just like a blueprint. On top of that, an object got created in the memory. So these reference data types, suppose like for example strings and arrays, will based on classes. We can also create our own data types. If you define a class by your own variables, sorry, your own fields, you can define that under your type. That's the amount of flexibility Java has. That's why it is called an object-oriented programming language, where you can create your own data types, your own variables, your own reference variables, where it point to an object where we can store data like the way we need it. So, okay, strings and arrays. So, string is widely used. String is not a primitive data type, but it's commonly used for storing in a sequence of characters, means string characters. For example, string greeting equal to hello world. So, once you do string greeting equal to hello world, Java will first create a memory in the RAM, create an object where you put hello world. The object address, it will return back to this reference variable greeting. So that's why it is called as a reference data types. So similarly for an int, similarly for an array, not only int, like array, like a collection of elements of same type. Suppose you want to store a integral data which has a more than one. So instead of creating a lot of variables, you can create a one array variable and you can store it. So these arrays will talk more when we go into an arrays concept. So let's go. So you may wonder like what happens if we try to fit a data which is of different type into, suppose if want to fit a data which is of float type into an integral type, what will happen? So in Java there is a possibility for that. That concept is called typecasting. So there is two types of typecasting in Java. So where we typecasting is nothing but we can convert a variable of one data type to another. There are two types this process, like one is implicit casting and explicit casting. The implicit casting is the compiler will take care of this conversion, and explicit casting is the developer has to inform the Java JVM to convert it. So what do you mean by an implicit casting? Implicit casting is also called as a widening conversion. That means you are going to store a data of lower size into any data variable of a higher size. Suppose you want to store a byte data which has a 8 bits into an integer that is as a 4 bytes. So there is no data loss, right? So compiler will easily convert that back to the appropriate higher data types. That is widening conversion. This automatically will happen. Automatic conversion from smaller to larger type. Suppose like int of my int equal to 9. I just want that to be passed to a double because int is a 4 bytes, double is a 8 bytes. From 4 to 8 bytes I'm converting. There is a lot of room 8 bytes, there is a lot of space available, so easily it gets converted without the need of any external command. But if you want to do explicit casting, that is narrowing conversion, a manual conversion from a larger to smaller type. Suppose like double data, in case reverse case, I have a double data 9.78. I need to put it in a int. Double is a 8 bit of data. I need to put it in 4 bit of integral uh, data. I just want to convert. So that's why I need to provide this explicitly smaller bracket int my doubles. That means I'm forcing the compiler, I'm forcing JVM to convert back to int. There is a possible loss of data. If you have a 8 byte of data, suddenly you need to put it into 4 byte data, that extra 4 byte data will get lost. So in our case, like 9.78 will be our data, right? In double. If you want to put that in int, it will become only 9. Okay. So guys, this is all about theory. I know it's a bit boring. Let's get our hand dirty. Let's let's go for a practical. Yeah. So I created a class. So this project yesterday video we created this project and ran a allowed program. If you guys not watched, please go and watch prior to this. So I created a one more class as a variables and data types. So here I created a variables of different data types. Just for a demonstration, I created a variable age of type int, salary of type double, grade of type char, and is employed are of type boolean, and name are of type string. Okay. So, and I assigned a certain values. So what happened is these values go and sit into their spaces. So int, there is a 4 byte of memory got created and 30 go and inserted there, like that. Similarly happens to all variables. When I do a system.out.println, those values get printed. So let's run this program and see. So guys, as you can see, name, Jodo, whatever we given, age, salary, okay, grade and true. Okay. So let's see, like this is a class, as you can see, separated by braces. So first braces to closing braces, these all come under class. Inside class, we have one more braces. This is a method. Okay. What I mean by public static void, I'll talk about that in later videos. Like main is a method, you just think, and this is the first method just get executed when we run the program. So we initialized the variables inside a method. So these are all called local variables or method variables. So these variables, as you can see, int of age equal to 30 and double of salary. So I did both declaration and initialization of a variable. If I only do declare this as a programmer, I have to do both. Like I need to initialize and I need to declare if a variable present inside a method. This is inside a method. If I don't want to declare, sorry, if I don't want to initialize, I'll get an error. See, I got a error, and the compiler is forcing me to variables may not have been initialized initial variable. Why? Because it's developer duty. If a variable present inside a method, it has to be initialized. But if the variable is declared under class level, that is a global variable, then if we don't initialize also, JVM will initialize with the default values. We saw the default values, right, uh, for all the data type variables. We'll see. Like what I'll do is I'll just cut this and declare under class level. As you can see, still I got error because these variables are declared under class level, but without creating an object. Class is just a blueprint. Without creating an object, I can't able to access these variables, right? So there is another way. What I can do is I can make this as a static. So if you do any variable as static or any method as static without creating an object, means without creating an object, you can able to access those. So I'll do all the variables as static. You just understand this much as of now. Like in our future video, I'll talk about more deeply what is the static and how the control flow will go. As you can see, the error gone. And I have not initialized, I just only declared all the variables. If I run the program, as you can see, name got null, age got 0, salary got 0.0, grade is a character which is null character has got printed, and employed got false default value. These are values are default values JVM will put if you define a class variables. So these are all about variables and data types, guys. So in our next video, we'll talk about on operators. Then we'll see on control flow statement. That's very interesting topic. So after all these three topics will get covered, you will get a basic understanding of basic syntax and fundamentals of Java programming. Then we'll jump directly into OOPS concept. So till then, keep watching, keep learning. Bye bye. Thank you.